Welcome to our web exclusive. I'm Mike Montecalvo along with Eyewitness News analyst Lieutenant General Reginald Centracchio. We'll talk about the sequester, budget cuts with the Navy and the military in just a second, General. Let's first talk about what happened last week. It was a tragic situation in the town of Johnston where a double homicide took place. A little boy was kidnapped. An Amber Alert was sent out. And by all accounts, that Amber Alert last week and a Silver Alert for an older gentleman before that worked out perfectly.
It did. Fortunately, they were both found. And that's the exact intent of Amber Alert and Silver Alert, is to give the general population an idea as to what they look like, where they are, give some background. So if they see them, they obviously identify them, turn them into the proper authorities, and they were found. I think the system is working fine, and it's gaining more acceptance and credibility on part of the general public. You know,
General, the question that always comes up with something like this is what type of time frame when they know to issue that Amber Alert?
You know, they often say that if you don't get the alert issued immediately and you don't find the individual in the first 24 or 48 hours, then it's perhaps a challenge at best. These two cases happen to be a storybook and a textbook solution. They were notified, they went on the air, they were found in a timely way, and they were found alive, fortunately.
And of course, we're going to stay on top of that story throughout the next several weeks. Let's talk about the latest developments now on the Navy furloughs. Those furlough days, because of the sequester, started at 22, went down to 11, and then finally went down to 6. It's coming to an end this week, right?
Yeah, this Friday is the end of the furlough for this fiscal year. We need to emphasize that and understand that we deal on fiscal years with the federal government, and that's 1 October through 30 September of the next year. What this did was to close out that consideration for furloughs for the military, specifically federal employees, for this fiscal year. Recently, Mr. Hagel was asked about whether this would continue into future years, and his answer was perhaps, and that could happen. So we might look at next fiscal year, looking at another furlough for all of our federal employees. Hopefully that won't happen because they will find opportunities to cut the budget elsewhere, as did happen in this particular case. But what we save here, we lose here in reference to defense contracts and other considerations.
How does this affect the local guard right now?
The local guard meant that we had some 487 personnel that were affected by this furlough. They did not suffer the 22 days. They didn't suffer the 11. They ended at 6, and that's good news, certainly for the economy in Rhode Island.
Now, I know you spoke to officials there. Did they have any indication what's going to happen once October rolls around?
I talked to Colonel Parenti this morning, and his indications were that everything is up in the air, to include perhaps a revisit to the air show that was taken out this past year, as well as Leap Fest. That's another consideration for the next fiscal year. If everything remains the same, they're available targets, a low-hanging fruit, so to speak, and so is the furlough issue. So we could be looking at the same scenario in the next fiscal year, starting on the 1st of October.
You know, before we ever heard about the sequester, we did know that over a 10-year period, about $500 billion needed to be cut in the military. Where does that stand now?
That stands on a continuing basis. That means we'll see consolidation of major commands. As an example, you may have 3 major commands consisting of about 1,000 to 1,500 personnel in that one command. They may consolidate those commands from 3 down to 1. And you eliminate all of the administrative overhead as well as the brass, so to speak, to include the flag officers and general officers that would command those normally. So instead of having 3, you'd have 1, and so you're going to see that kind of consolidation across the military.
But General, with the troops coming back from Afghanistan, they already put that into place, so they already put that into the budget, so to speak. What happens with all this unrest in the Middle East if they have to get dispatched out there again?
You know, we went through this right after Korea. We went through this right after Vietnam, we went through it right after the Gulf War, and here we are visiting the same thing. When we see the crisis is allegedly and at least seemingly at a lull, we have a propensity to take down the military. Something else happens, we have the same requirements to bring it back up. So I think you're going to see the same thing unfortunately happen. We bring our forces down, change the force structure down, something happens, we bring it back up.
All right, General Centracchio, as always, thank you for your thoughts and thanks for watching.